talk is about how I use AI agents. So I've been really drowning in the use of AI agents in the last few months, and they've really fundamentally reshaped a lot of the research that I do. Like Subayan was mentioning, I am like in the CSS area, and I've been in this space for like a decade or so. And now I think with these agentic tools, like the kinds of stuff that I can do, and the kinds of stuff that are enabled by agents has really changed the way I do research, and I feel like it also has changed or could change the way CSS research can be done. Like so, the idea of this talk is to give you a lot of examples, show you hands-on, like some of the stuff that I have been able to do, and how I use it in my daily routine, and then just maybe spend 10, 15 minutes talking about what I think it means for CSS. So before I start, like let me just show you a demo, like just to give you a quick sense of like how and what these tools can do. So here's a task like which is a pretty fairly normal task that we all do, like a data scraping task that would involve like a lot of like different tools that are tied together. Like so, if I ask the people in the room to do this without AI, like this is maybe a day of work. Like you would want to do this. Like so, the task is so you want to know what are foreign embassies in Washington D.C., where are they located, what are their websites, and I want like an interactive map containing these, and also a CSV file with this information. Let's say so there are maybe, I don't know, 100 embassies in Washington D.C. I want all the locations of those put on a map, also a CSV file. Let's say this is my task that I want to do. And so, let's first just let this run live on an AI agent, and then we'll get back to it in like maybe 10, 15 minutes. So first, let me switch to Claude Code. This is I'll talk about like some of these tools, the way I use it, what I do it, use it for, things like that. But let me just the way I do it is I go here, create a folder. So I can go here. I mean, I'll pick a folder on my own machine, and I will say, okay, this is uh, Singapore talk content, something like this. Okay, so then I'll say in this folder, and then I'll use voice mode, and I'll just type in the say the prompt. So I'll say I want to list out the embassies of different countries in Washington, D.C. I want to create a Python script that scrapes all of these, look up sources on the web which contain this information, maybe Wikipedia, maybe there are other sources, curate a list of all the embassies in Washington, D.C. in a clean CSV file. I want things like the country, the location, latitude, longitude, if present, and the website of the embassy, if present. I want a CSV file containing this information. I also want a HTML file containing a visual representation of the locations where these embassies are present. So I want a map where the embassies are all present. Right. So, as you can see, like this, I just typed it out, and so I'm using, some new model here. Like I'll talk about some of these in a second. And the voice is not super perfect, but I don't care. Like, I mean, I think it should be okay. Like it should work. And the just for the sake of this task, I'll just say, okay, don't ask for permissions, just I'll say auto mode, like meaning don't ask for permissions, just do the task and give me the output. So let's see, I mean, let's hope it starts running. And maybe I can also do the same for in a different app called Codex. So I'll say in downloads, I'll put the same task here. And again, I'll use a different model. And yeah. Okay, so let's get back to this in a second. But going through what it can do. Maybe here as well, I'll just stop it and I'll say do it without any permissions. Okay. So yeah, AI agents are tools like Claude Code, Codex, Gemini CLI. It's now called Antigravity, Cursor, and things like that. And these are pretty new. Like, they've evolved in their functionality and the capabilities over the last 6 months or so. And in the last few months, I've really not used the chat website. So I haven't gone to chatgpt.com or gemini.com or things like that. Like, so most of my workloads are now uh, done through these AI agents, and they're done on a dedicated app on my machine. So for Windows you have an app, for Mac you have an app, for Linux you have an app, and things like that. So basically, the difference between a regular chatbot, which is ChatGPT.com, and an agent is a chatbot is okay. You interact with it. It's like a chatbot. You ask a question, it answers with provides you an answer. And you always had this bottleneck of, okay, well, it gives you some code or it gives you some response. You would then take that response, paste it into your code, and then run that code. It gives you an error, paste the error back into ChatGPT, and do these kinds of things. And most of this was textual interaction. So you input text, you get out text. But with an agent, like because it's on your machine and all your files are on your machine, it can do this automatically. So it can create this sort of loop of actions where it can read your files from your local machine and produce all the analysis, look at the output, and iterate. So an AI agent is a model, so just like ChatGPT, but in a loop. So where it can check its own work, correct its own work, and things like that. I'll show you what that means. So this is how an agentic loop looks like. So you set the goal. So I, gave it the goal, for instance, with this embassy scraping task. And so what it'll do is, and as you saw, like I left it pretty vague. Like I said, okay, I do not give it the source where it should scrape this data from and things like that. So the agent will figure out a plan. It'll act on that plan, meaning it'll write some code, and then it'll run that code and it'll observe what is happening. Like, so it'll say, okay, I was able to run this code, I got this output, or I got this error. It'll fix that error and iterate in this loop until it's done, and then it gives you the result. Right? Like, this is a very different and new kind of paradigm uh, from the typical chatbot interactions that we're used to, right? Like, so the on ChatGPT, like you ask a question, it replies to you back, but it doesn't do this sort of back and forth automatically with itself. Uh, I also created this very ridiculous looking animation. I'll tell you why in a second, but it's the same thing that I showed you earlier, but just like a animated version of that. So, you set the goal, it plans the stuff, acts on it, does this sort of looping, and then finally creates an output. So basically, yeah, this was created using this tool called Claude Design. I'll also show you what that is in a second. Um, so and these AI agents have become really powerful over the last few months. Like the kinds of things that they can do are really, really impressive now. Like, and previously, with a regular chatbot, you could have it, ask a question, have it edit some text, write some code, or debug if you get an error. But with these agents, you can have it read your files. Like, so for instance, I have I don't know, a few gigabytes of data on my desktop. So previously, this was not possible to do or read with a chatbot, but now you can, because it sits on your local computer. It is able to do this for you locally. But then the last tool, which is like level 4 and level 5, like taking actions on your behalf, and then running without you even being present there. Like, these are things that are now enabled by the AI agents. So let me first show you what are the tools that I use, and give you some like a quick demo of like what are the functionalities they have and things like that. So I mainly use I use all of the main big available tools. The main tool that I use is Claude Code, which is the Claude.ai was the chatbot from Anthropic. And so it has a terminal and a desktop app. I used to use the terminal. Now I'm using the desktop app a lot. Like so, this is how it looks. So this is your usual chat box. If you go to Claude.ai, this is your chat box. You can chat here. But they have this code version, which is this agentic version of it, which where you can go and ask a question, and you can select the folder where you want to run this analysis, so it can read all the context. So it'll by default have access to all the files in that folder. So I'll show you some examples of where that is very helpful. And then you can say you can choose which model you want to use. So there's all these new models which are extremely powerful, and then you can select like what is the amount of effort you want to use. All of these are changing quite often. But yeah, so this is how Claude Code looks like. Then there's also like Claude Design, which is a new thing that I just recently figured out, which is very I mean it can help produce like very interesting design. So some of these I was just trying it out like a few hours ago, and like you can create like very detailed like animations and things like that, like with the help of Claude Design, something like this. Like so, I wanted to show how these agents can automate like and uh, uh, a very complex workflow. So you can create these sorts of videos which show like how it can do this. Like maybe if we get to this, I'll show you this. But this is Claude Design, which is helpful for designing websites or designing videos and things like that. Then Codex is similar. Like Codex is the product from ChatGPT. It's very similar. Again, you have a folder, you give it access to that folder, and it will write the files in that folder. Okay, and then Gemini has this product called Antigravity. It also has the same functionality. It has different models, and you can run stuff there. And yeah, these almost all of them have this functionality of saying, where you like, you can say, okay, I want to give permission for every command that you execute, or I can say, I want to, this is auto, meaning you can take all kinds of steps by yourself, things like that. The same for ChatGPT. You can say, okay, this is in a different language, but you can limit the amount of access you give it. So you can say, okay, read these files, but don't execute any commands. Or you can say, yeah, read these files, run these commands. There's a range of permissions that you can give. Uh, Unfortunately, this is not cheap. Like this is expensive. So the tooling that I currently have is this Claude Max plan, which is $100 a month, which is I think slightly bigger than the $20 plan. So it gives me like 5 times more usage limits than the $20 plan. At least for most of my use cases, the $100 plan is enough. The $20 plan was not enough. My university also pays for this ChatGPT Edu plan, like which is like for education, like it's $150 a month. Gemini Pro, I have Gemini Pro Access, which is free for EDU, at least for the last 1 year. So I have it free now for a year or so. It's good for its own purposes. And some of these, like I also use the API for some tasks. Like these are all built separately. So I mean, all of these my university is paying, but this is not really cheap. And I really think that this is heavily subsidized. So whatever we are getting for $100 or $150 will probably be much more like pretty soon. Like in a year, maybe these will go up like a lot because these plans are heavily subsidized. So what value you're getting for $100 probably costing Anthropic $500-600. And but the case I want to make in the rest of this lecture is that this provides a value that is much more than $100. That you can choose one of them. Like I think one of them should be enough. uh, for most of our purposes, our kinds of research kind of purposes. So I think the $100 is worth it. But I mean, again, like putting the $100 in context is very important. Like in in most of our tasks, like at least in the US, like if I want something done by a human, like $100 is like 3 to 4 hours of human effort, right? Like if I hire someone, like this is the way I look at it. But the capabilities, the types of stuff you can get, and the amount of hours that are saved are genuinely impressive. Like, and I hope I can really show you that, like, make that case. And so, if I mean, I just want to say that before you think that this is not for you, or like that these tools have whatever problems they have, I really encourage you to try these out. Like just pay the $20, just try it out for a month, and I feel like you will be impressed by what they can do. And yeah, in most cases, like in my case, like yeah, the my university is paying this, but many may not. But I think hopefully this will move towards that, because my feeling is that the unlock that in terms of productivity, in terms of the types of things that you can do with these, is not a 10 to 20% improvement. It's more like 10 to 20 times more improvement over what you as a person can do. Again, like sometimes it's even infinity is what I say. Like it's because it enables you to do things that you would never have done. Like I'll show you a few examples of that. Okay, so in the next 1 hour or so, I'll show you a bunch of use cases that I use ChatGPT for, or these agents for. Things like discovering new ideas, collecting new data, analyzing complex data, scaling up data analysis, in communication, like presenting stuff, creating websites, or automating daily jobs, and a bunch of things like that. Like so, I have a lot of use cases to show. And so there are these 8 use cases, and many of them are pinned to some part of our research pipeline that is part of my daily job. And then there's a small like 10 to 15 minutes where I'll talk about some of my thoughts about what this means for CSS, and the caveats and all of that stuff. So yeah, I think as you look at some of these examples, I mean, they're very specific to my workload and my type of working. So maybe some of these may not make sense for you, or these are not the type of tasks that you do for the type of research that you do. But I think it's important to kind of try to think and push yourself to see like where these kinds of tools might be helpful for you. Like obviously, yeah, these are all very catered for my use cases. Okay, and obviously, I mean, I can spend a lot of time on caveats, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on caveats. I have some slides at the end on this, but the main thing is just the usual stuff, like being responsible, being your work is your own. Uh, a lot of this is very exploratory. Like I mean, these are new tools, new toys that I got access to, and I'm really excited to try out various things. And some of these are good, like they are good ways in which I'm using them. Some of these are bad, probably not the right way of using them, and probably I should not be doing those. Again, a lot of them, this is not very well thought through in terms of what should be done. It's more about what could be done. So yeah, the and I have a lot of like thinking about this at the end. Also, I'm not. I think I'm a active Agentake user, but I I'm a regular user. I'm not like I don't have like any special tricks or any of that stuff. Like so, most of my use cases are just what I have been able to learn. So it's not like I've optimized my workflow for an AI agent or things like that. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's get into the use cases. So yeah, I'll talk about 8 use cases, like I said, like so some web scraping, so simple web scraping, like the example that I started with. a slightly more complex use case of web scraping, getting some related work, analyzing data, analyzing some more complex data, and then some communicating research and automating daily tasks. And for every task, like I think of this as some level of autonomy. So, L1 is just, like a chatbot, it answers your questions. And L5 is it operates infrastructure, it works unattended for many, many hours, things like that. I think, again, like looking at um, uh, uh, the progress of this just 1 year ago, just having something that does a task that you specify was the magical thing. And today we are like at level 5, and it's really magical. So in cases where you find that these are not really great, or they have certain issues, or they don't work and things like that, like I think this is something that you need to keep in mind, is that these things are developing so fast that whatever is the capability today is not necessarily the capability 3 months from now. So don't I have students, for instance, and colleagues that have tried ChatGPT, I don't know, 2 years ago and did not have a great experience and did not want to try it again. Like maybe this is not the room that does that, but I think yeah, keep that in mind, that this progress is really fast, and whatever are issues today may not be issues in like a month or 2 months. Okay, so let's get back to this question of like these embassies in Washington D.C. So first let's think about the task, right? Like so, the task is, okay, find these embassies, go on the web and find these embassies. So I can just start by a Google search. Let's say I find a website, maybe Wikipedia, with where the embassies are, like the list of those. Then I get that HTML, I scrape it, right? Like, so I have a Python script that scrapes that. And then I have a Python script that parses that HTML, extracts the elements, and then converts that into a CSV file. Some of this would have already been super heavy work, right? Like, so we in previous 6 workshops, like I don't know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was talking about how do you set up a web scraper, how do you do this, right? Like now a lot of this is automated. Again, like let's see. Uh, but yeah, there are a lot of these issues of like, okay, there's this element here, and the HTML is not well formatted, or like I don't know, some part of the table is misaligned and the script fails, and so I have to go and fix that. Working with real world messy data is always problematic. And then okay, I also ask for this sort of HTML file as output, which is like a visualizing the embassies that we find on a map. I mean, again, that would have been another maybe a multi-day task of like really plotting these on a map and visualizing them and things like that. So yeah, half a day to a few days, I would say. And let's first check like how this is doing. Man, this did not finish, so it's still running like 20 minutes from now. I mean, that's the problem with this recent model. Like, is it really thinks a lot? Like, it takes a lot of time. But you can check like some of these the steps that it went through. Uh, so here it says something around. Sorry, let me. Um, so it said, okay, I fetched this Wikipedia list of embassies. So yeah, the way I would do it is just go to Washington. mm, So I had already looked at this. So there's this website which has a list of diplomatic missions. So you go here, you get the address, you get uh, uh, the website and the latitude and longitude, I'm assuming somewhere. But or you can geocode from this. So this, yeah, it said it fetched the list from Wikipedia, and then it inspected the HTML, and okay, it did also a bunch of other things, like queried Wikidata for this. I don't know why. And yeah, then wrote that script. Like, so this is the Python script that does this. So it said, okay, Washington D.C. is in this range. Then it actually got data from this Wikidata API, and in a structured format. Like, so this is, I don't know, 700 lines of code like that it wrote. Like, again, this is probably multiple days of work. And it ran that script by itself. So it went into this folder and it ran that script. And okay, it got all of these data and it geocoded that. Yeah, the geocoding is with this Wikidata, whatever this thing that it is doing. The Spark QL, I think, yeah, with this OpenStreetMap is for geocoding, meaning you get the address, so you get something like this, 1627 New Hampshire Avenue, and you take that, you convert to a latitude and longitude, and so that is done with this OpenStreetMap thing. Again, we did not specify that, but it did that. Then yeah, it did not finish the thing yet, like, but it got all the data, so we can see all the data here. So it says, okay, I found 175 embassies, but I did not find it for all of these. Okay, which is also not something I asked. Let's check what ChatGPT has done. So ChatGPT has already gotten all the data. So yeah, this is the CSV file with these, right? Like, so Albania is the mission type is embassy, and I'm assuming everything is embassy. Uh, then the address, neighborhood, latitude, longitude, the website. Yeah, all of these seem to be correct. And we got it for like 175 of these. So let's just double check. Maybe Senegal is 2215 M Street, it says. So yeah, so this is correct, right? So it seems to have done the right thing. And then there's also this HTML interactive website, which is like it put all of those stuff on a map. So you can see, I mean, and it did a very good job. Like, okay, so it grouped together. Like, so here, for instance, there are a lot of embassies. So it grouped together all of them. It said, okay, here there are 61 embassies, and you can click on each of them to see, okay, this is Guinea, this is Costa Rica, this is Dominican Republic. So, you can already see all of them where they are in DC. Like, most of them are in this part of the city. And it also gave me a Python scraper. So this is also like a 500 line code like that does all of this. So, this is very, very helpful. So one of the things that I do all the time is ask for code so that I can replicate it, rerun it, like do my own analysis, change stuff if I see something that needs to be changed. And this is also a very good way for me to like get a clear sense of what are the decisions it took. So already, yeah, I mean, this is like extremely, extremely impressive. Like just the fact that with this thing that I just spoke out, it is able to go and get all of this data, like give me all of the code, give me this visualizer, give me the whatever, read me and instructions, give me a clean CSV file, right? Like, so it saved me at least a couple of days of effort. And so one of the things that we keep coming back to is this fact that some of these are will enable you to collect data which was not possible previously. Like, so in this case, okay, this is probably a simple scraping job that even if it took like a day, I would have been able to do. But there are examples that I'll show you which are really almost impossible for me to do that are now enabled because of this, right? Like, so in 20 minutes or so, it was able to do all of these tasks, like and more than what I had asked for. Like, it figured out that there is this OpenStreetMap API endpoint that takes the address, gives the latitude and longitude, put it on a map. This is just unbelievably complicated, like that. It just worked one shot, right? Like, so that's a really good example of a very complex scraping job. So overall, I think this is level 2 to level 3 autonomy. Like, I just gave it the prompt, like voice, and then it is able to, save me like at least 4 to 8 hours of time and very cheap uh, cost as well. So now let's look at a slightly more complicated example. So, as we do a lot of this type of research, we encounter a lot of tasks where the pages are behind a login, and maybe you will have to click through a bunch of menus. You want to select a bunch of things, and then click apply, and your what you want is like very, very niche, and like it is only available after a bunch of clicks. So there are cases like this where there are like, I don't know, 15, 16 clicks, after which you find the data that you're looking for. And so this is one example that I was recently using in my own research, which is this public access public document search from the Board of Public Utilities in the state of New Jersey, where I'm based in. And like so here, like we were doing some research on how AI data centers impact local electricity prices. And so this utility board has a lot of public data about the decisions being made about where the data centers should be set up, what is the cost that the data centers can charge to the public and things like that. So if you go here and you search for, I think it's called uh, public service electric, something like this. Um, yeah, so this is the company that operates the electricity grid here in New Jersey. And then there are a bunch of things like all of these are documents that talk about rates and financing. So how much price is being set up is being charged to the end user. And each of these is like a PDF document, and the PDF is like a super detailed like legal document which contains like sometimes, I mean, this is a short document, it's 4 pages with just meeting notes, but some of these are like really, really large documents which are yeah, I think this is like a compliance filing, for instance. It's like a super huge document, I would assume, which contains a lot of okay, this is also a short document, but anyway, so there are these sorts of like, if you uh, you see there are like many, many pages of these of decisions being made. These are all public documents. There are a lot of websites like this where you will have, like, if you want to have access to this type of data, you will have to go click on, okay, party search for this thing, then find this column, click on this, then click on like these documents, download these documents, things like that, like which are is again like a possible, but it's very tedious, and sometimes it's also ill-defined. Like some of the stuff might work, some of them may not work, sometimes it breaks and things like that. And so one of the ways that I figured out that this could work is and with AI agents is you could just record a video of your screen doing it once. So what I just showed you, you can just screen record while you're doing it, while you're narrating it. So you say, okay, go to this website, click on this button, search for this, then click on this link, then go through all these 10 pages and download all these PDFs and store them in these folders, so something like this. And then just store that video and give it to an AI agent, like put it in a folder and give it to an AI agent. And surprisingly, I use Gemini for this because it handles video very well. It can replicate all of those tasks and create a Python file for you that does this sort of script, right? Like, which is, again, like it's just unbelievably complicated, like, and mind-blowing capabilities. Like, just for me to not even give it any HTML, like it's able to figure out the HTML, figure out if I say, okay, click here and click on this and download the PDF, like all of these are completely done automatically. So this is like just magical that this works. So I have a video here, like a series that I recorded. Like this is one of the stuff that Subayan was mentioning. So I'll not play all of these, but like I'll show you how it works. Like so basically, um, okay, maybe yeah. Well, what I did is just exactly going through this process. This is the first video, and then okay, this is the prompt, which is the video recording. and then I was able to get it to run in like 20 minutes. And yeah, so this is all like yeah, I mean, if you watch the series, you'll realize like that. I was able to get this script running, and it was able to download like hundreds of these dockets, which are really hard to obtain. I mean, so the first part is obtaining these dockets, all of these PDF files. The next thing that I did not show in this series is then you can use again agentic tools to then parse through hundreds of or probably thousands of PDF documents. So you just say, okay, here's all these PDF documents. I'm looking for this specific thing. Like, give me a Python script that does this analysis, and then it'll go and analyze that. Like, I'll show you examples of some complex stuff like that. There are many things like that. Like that, now there's this other website which is also a government website which has a lot of information on on government decision making. This is COVID, like how they decide like immunization practices. And this was a huge thing like during COVID, like that they would ask people to submit comments. And this is in I'm not sure when this was. So this is in I think, yeah, 2021, peak COVID time. So as you can see, there was one which had like 10,000 comments, and these are all people. It's like a coordinated posting. So we are collecting a lot of this data now, and like scraping this would have again taken a long time. But it's also not so easy because of all of these paginations. But some of the people will submit like handwritten PDF documents, so now you can also auto parse all of these handwritten PDF documents, things like that. So it really opens up possibilities that were not previously possible. So this is a good example of that. So this is definitely level 3, where it is able to in probably a task that would have taken me a week or so for someone that is experienced, a senior developer, probably now takes like 30 minutes. I record the video, and then I make a few edits here and there to get the script to work. uh, and obviously, you need to be careful with terms of service, and there are captchas and things like that. But for many websites, something like this will work. And yeah, I mean, this is a place where like I think about what prompts mean, right? Like, so prompts used to be a big thing, like back in the day when these chatbots started appearing. And now you can see what a prompt means. A prompt is like, I just spoke to it for like a minute, and that, I didn't care about spelling mistakes or the exact framing. It's able to understand me. I give it a video and say, okay, read this video, and it's able to read a video. So the prompting part of it is like very different now with these agentic tools. The next example, the third case study, is something that I use also a lot these days for discovering new literature. Like, I mean, I wouldn't use this for like a thorough literature review, but it's definitely very helpful for finding things that I would have missed. And this I use this Gemini deep research tool. So again, like I think this is a part of the pro functionality, but there is this, if you go to Gemini, there is this deep research mode here, like which is helpful in, I mean, and most of the uh, tools, AI agents or AI chatbots have this deep research mode, which is just helps you like take a problem, work on it for like 10-15 minutes. It scours through a lot of resources and gets back to you. So basically, so I mean, I had asked a question around like something about this synthetic social network that I was looking at. So I just pasted a bunch of papers that I found, and then I said, okay, these are the types of papers that I found. Like, I want to know more. Like, give me more. Like, this sort of used to, again, uh, uh, this is high precision, low recall. Like, so meaning, whatever I find will be relevant. So it gives you a lot of resources that, I mean, gives you this huge report, which is mostly not that helpful for me. What I am really looking for is these resources, these sources that it uses, like, and there are like hundreds of these that it uses, and some of these are like news articles, some of them are research papers. You can specify where to look, what to look for exactly. But for instance, I already had, I don't know, 10, 12 papers that I know were on this topic, but now I can quickly see this and figure out like that. They maybe there are like five, six others that I've missed, and usually this is really good in like kind of bridging fields and like helping me find papers from whatever psychology or sociology or something that I would not have thought of. So this is very, very helpful in that. Like it'll take like 10, 15 minutes to do this kind of search. But I think this is a very helpful. I mean, it's also agentic, very helpful with those sorts of tasks. Another way of using this is like to do this locally. Like so, just you can have an AI agent. Like you can have Claude, for instance, instead of giving this the links to all of these. I can say put all of these PDFs in my local folder. Let's say with Zotero or whatever. You have them locally. You can say, hey Claude, like this is the repository that has all these files, and I want to I'm thinking of this area. I want to think about this. Like, what are other things that you can find, and it'll really do this or literature review. Again, almost all of these come with this caveat that there are these gaps here, but the main thing is I'm the reason I included here is this almost always helps me find stuff that I might not be thinking about, right? Like which is almost always the mental model that I have in using all of these tools is they are not as like smart as a human, like a PhD student that I can work with, but they're almost there, right? Like so, and sometimes they surprise you. So I have an example where I say that maybe out of the 10 ideas it gives, one of them is something that I might not have thought of, something like that. So it's similar here. Like when I'm looking for new literature, most of the times it's dumb stuff. Like it's really either stuff that is not relevant or not interesting or stuff that I already know of. But maybe 1 in 10 times it gives me something that's very interesting. And I think I don't think there's a tool that enables you to do this type of stuff, like apart from deep research. So this is very helpful for me. So this is, yeah, not very high in the autonomy scale, but it really, again, like helps in this sort of discovery a lot of the times. Okay, so now let's get to another example, which is on data analysis. So let's take an example of some recent data that I collected, which contains ChatGPT histories from around 1,300 users from India, Nigeria, Brazil, and Pakistan. So this is a data set that I collected through some sort of data donation. So I paid people, and they exported their ChatGPT histories and shared that with us. It is so this contains full conversation logs, so containing all of their ChatGPT logs that they have interacted with and collected with consent. Like so, they provide consent along with some other demographics. So this the data set looks like this. So it's public, by the way. We have around 1,300 users. Like I said, India, Brazil, Nigeria, Pakistan, tens of thousands of conversations from each country. A conversation is a bunch of like back and forth like messages. And for each user, we also have their age, gender, country, and if they have a pro subscription or not, and a bunch of other like stuff that we extracted from this data that we've released recently, like things like like what is the topic of the conversation? Are they seeking information? Are they asking you to do something? A bunch of things like that. Like so, let's say you have access to a data set like this, which we have. And one of the things that I've been doing a lot these days in this type of work is just thinking of like going back and forth with the model in brainstorming the types of analysis that you can do with with this type of data. Let's say you have access to data like this, like which is structured, like it's a bunch of CSV files, a bunch of like README files, and some Python notebooks that show how to use that data, right? Like, so this is a typical data set that we release with along with our paper. So now, what we can do is we can take that, like put that in a folder and ask an AI agent, like, hey, this is the folder containing this type of data. You provide information, and you ask it for different types of analysis that you can do with this type of data. So, and I had this, I saw this somewhere, but this is very, very helpful for me. I have this in my uh, agent memory, which applies to every project that I start. So I say, I'm about to start this project. Like, ask me questions until you are very confident that you about what I want and not what not what I think I should want. Like that helps me get clarity, and it's really, really helpful to have this sort of back and forth the model to get this clarity myself and for the model itself. And then I use a big, powerful model with a lot of thinking to come up with a plan and then execute that plan. Yeah, a lot of my kind of data analysis and exploration these days is like this, like where you start with a data set and then you get a bunch of like you spend maybe 1 2 hours going back and forth with the model, thinking about. So I already, if I have a data set, I come with a problem or a set of problems that I want to work on, and then I iterate and improve them and expand that set. And so now I'm able to like take a bunch of ideas, like maybe, I don't know, instead of working on 2 ideas, I can work on 20 ideas, and then quickly eliminate things. So, just say, okay, most of these ideas are not very useful or helpful and things like that. Like, so it helps me in like blowing up the space of possibilities and immediately narrowing down like what are the interesting directions that I can look at, invest my time in, and so on. So I'll show you an example in a second. Like, yeah. So maybe I'll just quickly show you um, the okay. By the way, this finished, and it also gives me this thing. Yeah, this, I mean, Claude is decently good at this sort of visualization. So again, like this is a different type of visualization, but this is also very good. Okay, so basically, yeah, what I wanted to show you was this thing. So just so this is on my uh, yeah, so maybe not this, but anyway, so the idea here is I gave this Claude access to the data set. So the data set is just the raw data set containing all the JSON files and things like that. So the data looks like this. So it's each user is a CSV file, and the CSV file or a JSON file and contains like, okay, the conversation ID, and then all the messages in the conversation, what is the content of the message, things like that. Like, so I provide this folder, like I just say in the data folder, there, there are all of these, I mean, there are like 1500 or so, yeah, 1569, it's 5 GB of data. So all of these users, and I describe it, like just describe in plain English, that this is ChatGPT conversations, and this is what is in there. And then I say, I want to do this type of analysis, give me more ideas. So that's one thing that I've been doing these days. So it creates this sort of file like this. After a lot of back and forth, I come up with this plan. Like, say, I say, understand the data thoroughly. So, this contains the data. This contains the demographics. Then first, just list out all the files. Check out like what is in the data. Create a descriptive statistics report for me. Um and then I say, okay, I created these 15 different research questions with again like a bit of back and forth, and like all of these are again like super shallow but quick ideas that I want Claude to automatically test. So I want to say, okay, the hypothesis is that users, as they use ChatGPT, progressively delegate higher order cognitive tasks to AI, and so it has some steps in which it can try to do this, and most of these are super shallow, meaning it'll just look for some regular expressions and things like that. But there is like a bunch of ideas like that. Like, so there's 15 ideas here, and each of those ideas, it has a plan for each of them, and basically it says, okay, I will write the code for each of them. So I will say the phase 0 is just a descriptive phase. Then each phase is a research question for each of them. I have the findings, the plots, the figures, and so on, right? Like, so if you look at this sort of outputs folder, it contains each of these research questions, and each of those research questions has its own figures. There's a findings file. There's a summary file, like containing the summary, the subset of data that is relevant to this research question, a bunch of things like that. And so again, like I said, like most of these ideas are really very simple and they are not very helpful. Like, but out of 20 ideas, maybe there are two ideas that are really, something that I might not have thought of. Like, it'll suggest, oh, in psychology, there is this index that people use. You can join that with this to get. So, again, like this, so those kinds of things are really this sort of serendipitously discover new types of things. And all of this is running in the background, right? Like, so I'm not spending a lot of time really monitoring all of these. This is all autonomously done. And so yeah, it proposes research questions, ideas for analysis. I look at it, edit it, like, and yeah, typically like 1 in 10 at this point, like are things that are good. But with some of these newer models, like Fable, for instance, I think so it's much better. Like, so I would say maybe 2 in 10 are good. Like, it's really getting much better. And like so an output of this could just be like a website like this. Again, like I'll show you how I create websites like this. So here it just summarized all the, so I did in the end up like with 21 different ideas, and they're grouped together like this. So they're on overview and adoption, cognition, thinking, emotion, economy and labor, culture, gender, and so on. So I can look at, okay, all of these. So these are the question here is linguistic accommodation, cultural erosion, or gendered AI interaction across cultures. Okay, I can look at what it did. So then it says, okay, these are the findings. The gender use the differences in AI are moderated by cultural context. So this is the hypothesis, and it did find, yeah, so, statistically there are some significant differences. That's what it finds, and I can also see the figures. It looks like, yeah, there are differences between male and female, whatever. Like, all of this was automatically created. Like, all these dashboards, all of these were automatically created. I'll talk a bit about how I do that in a second. But then I can also quickly take a look at the code and everything. And so basically, all of this would take me like maybe an hour or so to set up, like to prompt, to think, go back and forth, to validate, to evaluate. Like, so now, I can say out of these 20 ideas, like maybe two are really interesting, and whatever quick analysis that it has done, I need to develop further, and I do more detailed analysis, more deeper analysis. So then I can spend time on that instead of like spending time doing these 20 different things. And again, a lot of these are things that I might not have thought of or I might not have done at all, right? Like, but now you can delegate and have an agent do things like this. So this is like one level of analysis, which is already in my opinion, super interesting, right? Like, so you have a data set and you have some ideas on it, like you work together with an AI and delegate and get this sort of like very detailed, like high level analysis and report of what can be done. Uh, but then obviously, yeah, again, like this is the caveat that I keep reporting is it's like, even if you work with, students, RAs, it's like a sloppy RA in many cases. Like it'll make these choices or decisions that you might want to double check and things like that. So my way of doing things with it is always, again, like have this way of quickly pruning out. Like, so if something is not interesting, it's not interesting. If something is interesting, I will take a look at the findings, the way it did the analysis, the code, and things like that. So you can clearly prompt it to say, okay, for every task that you do, I want you to create a very good structure in which you put the code here, you put the figures here, you put the paper here, things like that. So that will help you, like, in quickly verifying and replicating what it did. So yeah, this is probably, weeks and months of human time, like RA time, that are probably, some things that I would not have done, but now I'm able to do in like a few hours. Okay, so we've talked about four different use cases. Now let's take it a step further. So, like the fourth use case was already like slightly complex analysis, but the problem is, it did some of this local analysis where it did, use some heuristics to analyze the data. But if you want to really take this to a next level, like really replicate what, you and I as researchers do, like it's a bit more complex than just writing a bunch of scripts. Obviously, that is part of our researcher toolkit. Like, but we also do other things, right? Like, so we have more complex tasks that we want to do. Like, for instance, okay, if I want to identify what are gig work tasks that people are doing, like I might want to use, annotate a piece of like a small set of codes, and then build a classifier to do this analysis and things like that. So it might be a bit more complicated than writing a simple Python script. And so let's just think about a few of these more complex problems, given like a data set of how people in these different countries are using ChatGPT. And these are ideas that I had come up with, like just like curiously browsing through. So I was browsing the web and I saw a report on like how people are using ChatGPT for gig work. And then I thought, okay, how do gig workers use ChatGPT in our data set? Or do we observe like sycophantic behavior in these models? Or do users create personal relationships with ChatGPT? Or how much cognitive load are people offloading to the model? Do people anthropomorphize ChatGPT, like treat it like as a fellow human? Do they say thanks, please, etc.? Like, especially for this data set, like are people in the global south using it for culturally specific issues like, I don't know, astrology or local medicine, things like that? So these are questions which are slightly more detailed, like, and require not just filtering. Is there a question? Okay. Yeah. Like just filtering with a few keywords and things like that. So let's take an example of this last question, like, which is like, let's say, we have these data from these four countries: India, Pakistan, Nigeria, Brazil, all global south countries. Like, how are people using it for any culturally specific issues? How do we do that? So, and one of the ways I have been able to do this is like figure out, like, building these very complex workflows using these agentic tools. And so the idea here is like, so this is the prompt that I used. So I came across this article. So this was some on this Indian news channel. It says an auto rickshaw driver uses ChatGPT in their daily life, and it was about astrology. Like, so they show that they're using it for like understanding topics like work, marriage, and other subjects, but also he was using it for zodiac signs and meanings of those and things like that. So I was wondering, like, okay, how much of that is also in our data set? We have like 600 users in India, probably 100,000 conversations from Indians using ChatGPT. Like, how much of that exists in our data set? So I said, like, just again, just poke out like this and said, okay, I want to look at this. but the task is slightly more complex in that, I want to use like a local open source model, something like Gemma or Llama, to annotate the data. So instead of just using some keyword filters, I want to annotate the data and classify the data. uh, and uh, and then I want to come up with a plan for doing this type of analysis and running that analysis. So the idea is, yeah, annotating the data using an open source model on a GPU cluster. So my own laptop does not have a GPU, but I have a university cluster where there is a GPU, and it requires like transferring the data to that university cluster, running the jobs there, coming back to my local machine, like, and then doing the analysis on my local machine. And then it involves like other things, like, okay, maybe if I want to write a paper with this, I want to compare how Gemma did compared to whatever OpenAI model or Claude a commercial model using the API. And like it involves all of these tasks of like transferring files from my local machine to the cluster, and back, like, and checking progress on the cluster. So, you schedule the jobs on the cluster, checking if it has finished. If it has finished, then transferring the files, and so on. Like, there's a bunch of things like this, which we regularly do as researchers working on these. And then the final thing is, look, you have all the data, you have all the analysis. You want to write a paper or a report or a blog post with this type of analysis. So let's see what these kinds of workflows, how these can be done. So basically, again, like I have the data in this folder, right? Like all the data here. And I said, okay, create all these other folders where, like, there are these different ideas. So I said, okay, how are people forming relationships with AI? Or how sycophantic are these models? Or this is the task that I was mentioning. How culturally local are people asking, like, what are the stuff that people are asking? And it would write this very detailed prompt that I would use for classifying the conversations. And this is again like with a bit of back and forth from with me. But the idea is, it'll take this each of the conversations from the users, and then for each user create a score of like how local, as in culturally local, the conversation is. Is it global generic? Like, okay, if I'm writing code, everyone writes code, or like, is it incidental, or is it deeply local? So this is about a local practice or belief or ritual or institution. So there's a first stage classifier that does that. Then there's a second stage classifier which takes these classif labels which are classified as moderately local or deeply local, and does a much more deeper classification, like things like, okay, is it astrology, is it religion, is it local rituals, folk beliefs, things like that, and then so on. Like, there's a bunch of like again, like, it goes through the data, comes up with these few short examples. So it says, okay, if this is the case, this is the label. So all of this was done automatically. And then once that is done, then it'll give it another prompt to do more analysis, and then so there's also a, a way of like chaining all of these. So it'll tell it like, okay, do this task first, do this task next, do this task next, and so on. It creates all the data for that, and finally the output is a paper like this. So, it'll come up with a paper as an output. So this is all completely end-to-end AI written. Like, and so the paper looks like this. Like, this is the output that I get, which is something like, this is written in LaTeX. Like, so it has the regular structure, and like it describes everything that was done, like what is the context in which this was done, all the results, all the plots, and so on, right? Like, and for instance, I mean, whatever you were thinking of, like things like astrology, for instance, it's only, I don't know, 845 conversations in the entire data set, and so on. Like, but a lot of questions around religion, economy, finance, and so on. So anyway, so I can quickly browse through or read through this report and like quickly get a sense. And again, like, this is, if you're looking at something like this for the first time, it's really not believable, but all of this was done end to end with AI. Obviously, I have some involvement here in saying, okay, how did this task run? Like, where is this task now, and things like that. But like everything from creating, like, I gave it the idea, and then it'll take and create all the harness for, okay, now I have to transfer the data to this server. Now I have to start the job. Like, yeah, that's another thing that is super underrated is now the ability of these models to do computer use. I'll show you a couple of examples at the end. Uh, but these models are really, really good at computer use, meaning they can operate your computer by themselves. Like, so for instance, this is my terminal on my university machine, which so it has these jobs that are running. And so there is a Claude instance here that is checking, like, if this job has finished or not. And then once the job has finished, it'll say, okay, the job is done now, so I will transfer this data back to my local machine. So it's regularly monitoring these jobs. So it's really good. Like, so, and then you can do many of these, right? Like, so there can be several sessions at once that are running with synced with Git and things like that. And so once you get, like, so like I showed you, there are these 5 ideas that I'm trying now, 6 ideas, and then I will say, okay, out of these, maybe 2 of them seem interesting. Like, let me invest more time in it, and like spend more time in like actually improving the paper, or seeing if the results are interesting, or write about it in a blog post or things like that, right? Like, so this kind of almost automates the entire research pipeline to a large extent. Like, I mean, we'll see, like, is this good or not? All of that is, downstream. Like, we'll look at that, but the capability of doing it, like an execution of it, is already here. So this is like almost like level 5, like where it is able to operate infrastructure, like monitor progress, like transfer files, check for completion, check for errors, restart programs if there is an error, like, all sorts of like really extremely complicated stuff. This would have been like weeks, if not months of jobs. That is now probably over a weekend, like not overnight, but over a weekend, it's able to do this kind of stuff. Okay, so I'll quickly go through 3 more of these use cases and then wrap up. So the next use case is this sort of throwaway software, which is what's called vibe coding, right? Like, and this is also now very much simple and enabled by AI agents. So you can build an app for a data set for one person. Previously this was not unimaginable, or it was hard to do, or not practical, but now it's possible. I'll show you a couple of examples. All of these were done in like a single prompt or like a few minutes of effort. Um, there was this. I had a paper at a conference recently, and I was presenting a poster, and I just wanted to do something that is, I don't know, funny and like slightly attract people's attention, kind of thing. So I prompted it to create this sort of like a website, which like is, I mean, this is all generated with generative AI. Like, it's on scroll, like it talks about what the result, and like it has this sort of funny thing which says this is a link to the paper, this is a video. So this is a website that was created just for that whatever half an hour poster session. Like, I have a QR code on my poster that people, if they scan it, like, there's this nice video, and like a bunch of things like that, right? Like, it also tells what the paper is about, it links to the paper, things like that. So this kind of website, I will never use it again, right? Like, I mean, I'm using it now, but this is only meant for that 30-minute session, and maybe like 3 people might have scanned that QR code and looked at this. So, but still, like, for me to make something like this took 10 minutes of my time. So it's worth it now. Like that, I could create these sorts of websites which are custom, like specific for that task, and that's it, like for that task, right? Or like this has been like something that is very, very helpful in sharing data with my co-authors, or like looking through data qualitatively is like, so yeah, we have these huge CSV files of people conversing with ChatGPT. Now I can ask these agentic tools to say, create a viewer that reconstructs how this would look on ChatGPT, and that will give you like, it takes that CSV and it puts it in this sort of ChatGPT like interface where I can quickly see, oh yeah, this is the question that the person asked. This is the answer. Like, this kind of a viewer, if I wanted to build something like this, would have taken, again, a very, very long time for me. And I can, search for conversations here and things like that. But I can, very quickly now get a sense of like, okay, yeah, these are the information that is in there. We have the model that people have used, and that will help me like think about research questions or qualitative analysis and things like that. This is another example, and a ton of like these on-demand dashboards. So I showed you that GitHub link with this data, right? Like this we shared publicly, but you can also have like a very nice dashboard that people can quickly extract that and explore that data. Like, so you can say, instead of sharing just this dump of CSV files, you can say, have ways in which people can explore it, like in a very dynamic way. So I can say, in India, female 18 to 24, what are the topics that people are using it for? And you can clearly see. Or you can say, I want to compare that with India, male 18 to 24, and you'll get this sort of like very quick. Again, like this was probably 20 minutes of my time, but now it helps people like really, or even myself and my co-authors, like quickly look through and like get a quick sense of like what is in the data, what are the types of questions that are interesting. Okay, here I see, for instance, men use it a lot more for content creation than women. Oh yeah, maybe that's a interesting research question that I can dig into, things like that. Like, so this again is really, really would have been so hard or impossible to do, but you can produce these sorts of, and this is very complicated dashboards as well. Like, so things like doing these sorts of complex filtering and cross tabs and things like that. So you can do all of these very easily now. And this is something that I spent a disproportionately large amount of time is like working on my personal website, like which is yeah, I'm not very proud of it, but maybe I'm proud of it. Like which is, so basically I have a bunch of like really useless but things that are fun. Like, so things like this thing which tracks my cursor. So the guy has sunglasses if it's light theme, but if it's dark theme, there's no sunglasses. And then there's like an infinite number of websites which are generated every time you reload. There's a new website, and this is again like because like I'm now able to generate like infinite number of these. So this again like it's very, again, I mean, it's very silly and like it looks like a very unprofessional thing, but okay, in the end, like I think it's a fun thing, like that is now possible. Like at least it shows like what kinds of things are possible. Like, so I can reload and like get new websites, keep getting new websites all the time. Then there are yeah, I just realized that there's this thing called ChatGPT sites, which enables anyone to create a website. So if you go to ChatGPT and you say new task, and then you say, I think it's called sites. Yeah. So this is for hosting and creating and hosting sites. So you can just say, create a personal website for me. Here's my CV or something like that. And then it'll create like a personal website for you that is hosted on ChatGPT. So you don't even have to have any issues with like where it is hosted and things like that. I haven't tested this, but it's as simple as this now. Like, so you can even just say like, yeah, I have this dashboard, like now host it on ChatGPT.site, and it'll do that for you. So this is again something that's very new, and probably again make it very easy. So there's yeah, there's a lot of things that this type of very simple, uh, like visual communication will enable. Like now your co-authors can browse through a lot of data, participants can see their own data. So we are doing another experiment where people will upload like their electricity bills, and we build a dashboard on demand. Like it'll just directly show them their data, a bunch of things like that. So this is again like was a big deal. Like you had to hire a front end developer with like very good design skills and things like that. Again, I I don't know. I would rate these in terms of design as decent. Like these are not bad, but I talk a bit about like if everyone does it. Like so, when I created this dashboard, I was so proud. Like I was really just I was so happy that I was able to create something like this. But if everyone is creating websites like this, like then it becomes slop. Like but anyway, so I think yeah, there's an aspect of things like that. You can also create things like slides. So a lot of like, I mean, creating slides, the problem for me always was the design and like putting the boxes right and like having these realigning the boxes, creating the right font for every slide, all of that stuff used to be a huge pain in the ass for me. Like, but now again, you can prompt and like get these slides so it can create native PowerPoint. So this is very helpful. So again, like some of these slides, an initial version of them was done through PowerPoint, was done through agents, and then I edited it extensively. But all of the design, like all the, I mean, I provided it and said, okay, these are the fonts to use. This is the design to use, and then it created the this sort of design. But some of these things, like okay, this autonomy, like if I wanted to create this, I would have had to create these 5 circles, create the color in those, like all of those are now done automatically. So which really saves a lot of time. But yeah, I mean a lot of this is just it's very you have a thought and like you give it all the details. It's a very detailed prompt that I gave it. Like so these are the audience and like this is the content that I want to present and like these are the things that I want to include. And then I had a bit of back and forth and like come up with the plan. Like I said, okay, I want to mention, I forgot to mention these, add these slides, and then I then added more slides later. But in the end, like the actual shell was created using ChatGPT, which was very, it saves a lot of time. So again, like this is I would say level 3 autonomy really saves a lot of time in designing some of these overall templates. Uh, and then the final example I want to give is this sort of, which is again very nascent at this point, but it'll become more and more useful as people find more use cases. So this is one use case for me that is very helpful, which is this thing of like, so I am subscribed to a bunch of like these mailing lists with on this website Archive, ARXIV, which is a computer science preprint website where, and every day I get an email with all the papers that were published on or that were uploaded to archive that day. And this I used to do this from like 10 plus years, and it's every day morning I log in and I check this, and it'll be like 10, 20 papers, and I would quickly look at this, and this would be which would help me keep up with what others are doing. It's 10 minutes of my day and things like that. But since the last few months or so, like the volume of papers published on archive is just gone up exponentially. So as you can see, like I have a lot of papers, a lot of emails from this that I have not had time to read. So what I did is I created this automation, like which is something like this. So basically, I tell it like, okay, go and access my mail, and like get emails from this specific email address, and create a dashboard for me with files which with papers that are relevant for me. And every day it creates something like this. If I click on refresh. Uh, then it will generate this sort of like digest for me, which there's a complex automation behind, like which is going through this. through my mail, my mail app, like accessing all the emails from this specific email address. And I also gave it my CV so it knows my interests and then finds papers that are relevant. And I also have a way to mark papers that are interesting or not. And so it continuously learns. So here, it's fetching data from my email right now. If you go back to the mail, like you will see that, after this fetch is complete, like it will mark all of these as read. So, it has now all of these emails are marked as read, and I have like 20 papers that it thinks are relevant to me. And then I can quickly go through these and like say, oh yeah, this is relevant, this is not relevant, and it learns this and so on, right? Like, so this is again a very personal task for me. Uh, but the main thing is it uses the power of like ChatGPT for the content classification. So every time it runs it through ChatGPT's own classifiers for relevance, and it is learning when I mark it as relevant or not. So it's this very personal use case, but it combines a lot of this sort of automation, which is very helpful and which is very I think it's a very interesting use case of like combining the power of LLMs with some sort of automation in a safe way and things like that. But I think there will be many, many more use cases like this. I mean, this is a very benign use case, but I think there might be other more interesting use cases. So there's also a video on how I did this on my channel. If I don't have it here, yeah, I will add that when I share the slides. But yeah, again, this is super high level automation. Okay, so maybe I'll quickly wrap up. I've been talking for a very long time. Yeah, maybe 10 more minutes. So yeah, there's a bunch of other tips. Like there's always a good thing to have this sort of markdown file, either Claude.md or Codex.md, whatever you call it, where you just talk and provide a lot of context, right? Like, so one thing I use a lot is this button here, like the speaker speech to text is now really, really good, even for accent voices. So it really, like, I just speak to it for like 10 minutes and it just transcribes everything into a prompt. And even if there are these sorts of breaks and all of that stuff, it understands it properly. So I think interacting like that is a much better way, because that way I'm thinking out loud and like I can just say, yeah, I think this might work or this might work and things like that. So I'm just thinking out loud for 10 minutes. So that helps a lot in providing very detailed context. And yeah, I mean, also be very careful with raw data, and like setting up the guardrails for that should be very simple. So, I showed you this example of like we have the data in one folder. I have explicit rules that say, okay, this is only read only. You only read from there. You cannot write there or change that file or folder. You can organize things, by default. You can say, okay, whenever you're writing code, it has to be in this code folder. All the figures should go in figures. All the prompts should go in this folder, things like that. And every project that I work on, like I always set it up in a way that there's one script that I can run, that I can replicate everything that it has done, and ask it to write the code and some sort of test to make sure that the code is correct. And I always also ask it to provide a readme of what it did. Like, so this is both helpful for me to read through what it did, but also in continuing the conversation. Like, I don't know, from 2 months later, I want to go back and I want to talk to it more, then it can read through that file and see like, okay, I've done this, and then it can continue from that. So there's a bunch of tips like this. Yeah, and a bunch of other things. Like I also use it with Overleaf. You can connect with Git, and you can push, like you can edit locally and you can push to your Overleaf. So your collaborators can write on Overleaf, but then you can edit locally. And I do that because I can have the code, the data, the analysis and everything in the same place. So I will be able to say, okay, improve this script and do this new kind of plot. And then instead of uploading that PDF to Overleaf myself, I can just copy that to that folder, the paper folder, and it's automatically pushed. So a bunch of things like that. So one very important thing, again, I think this I added at the end is there's a lot of things that are possible, but that doesn't mean they need to be done. Like, right? Like, I mean, I showed you a bunch of examples like that, like which again is curiosity that I can see that this thing can be done, but it doesn't have to be like it need not be done, right? Like so, and I did not care a lot or like think a lot about stuff here where these things could be misused or things like that. So that's something that I wanna flag. There's also this sort of taboo in the community around again, like in my circle at least, I know like my students or the students I teach, everyone is using it. Like even the my collaborators, everyone using it. Not everyone acknowledges using it. Like there's a this sort of stigma attached to the use of AI. Like and there are still places where there is a pushback on like the use of AI. I think especially for students, there's this dilemma of like whether using it constitutes cheating. In a lot of these examples that I provided, like these used to be the job of most of our PG students. So now if you're able to automate a lot of this, like what are people cheating? Like I have a lot of students ask about this. And so my position on this is that not using these or hiding their use is just a disservice. Like I think these things will mature. Like again, like think of how people used to think of using Wikipedia or using Google search or using ChatGPT 2 years ago. Things have changed now. Like it'll be similar, and I think it's important to disclose and like really use them very effectively. Like I think my feeling with like interacting with students is that if you don't teach people or don't tell people how to use this effectively, like there will always be students who will use these effectively, who will have an edge, and who will have an edge over like someone who's not using these tools. So I think this is the new reality. The writing is still very bad. Like so the one thing that I've had like a hard learning experience is that they're not really good yet at it. Like and it's easy to detect, especially if you yourself use these tools. You can really there's a very clear tells, and now some of these tools like Pangram are able to detect AI writing. So I think what I do is mostly use it for writing for self-consumption, like these reports that I had it right. Like I think that's a easy way for me to quickly glance through what it did and like help me frame the things like either the way it did, like if it's right or not. Like and so I will encourage people not to use that for writing. Obviously, firstly, it's not that good. It's easy to tell, but it's also like to make it better will become a lot more work. Like I think that's my take on it. As someone who has used it for writing and who has spent either some sort of personal capital, like social capital, in terms of like lower quality writing, or having had to spend a lot of time like rewriting what the AI has written. So I think I still wouldn't think writing is very good. And again, like I keep saying this, maybe the fourth time, it's not perfect. All the verification is on you. Be in control. Have these setups in a way that you're not trusting it too much. It'll fail in unexpected ways. Just recently, in the last 1 week or so, there were these very high profile use cases where some of these latest agentic models, this just deleted a bunch of files. So there are two cases like this, like which are very popular, like and these are real, like it just they just let it run on its own, and it just deleted a bunch of their files. And there's also these kinds of issues, especially in writing academic papers, that there are these fake citations. I mean, those are easy to fix, but again, like you need to be very careful and cautious with that. One thing I do is use multiple models to check each other's work. Um, so I use Gemini to read a paper before I submit in a very critical way, and it'll act as a reviewer and critique the paper. and then I take that, like make those changes, things like that. Like, so that really helps in improving these and catching these errors which you might have missed and things like that. Okay, so last 5 minutes maybe on what it means for CSS research. So this is a lot of this is from this Matt Jenskow, who's like an economist at Stanford. So from that, but I kind of try to make it specific for CSS. So there's this paper in 2009, which is like a seminal paper since published in Science by all the big names in computational social science, and talks about the emergence of this field, like where in 2009, this is when all these Facebook, Twitter kind of social network data was being available. So that's the first time when people saw and thought, okay, yeah, we could use this kind of data along computational tools to do a lot of good social science. And they listed these four obstacles in CSS. The first is access to data in 2009. Um, so this, even after these AI tools, it's unsolved. Like it's not like these agentic tools suddenly give you access to new type of data. In terms of replication, I think it's much more easier. Like a lot of the examples that I showed you are actually inspired by replication. So I saw a paper which was done on a different data set that I want to replicate on my data set. Like so now I can just have an AI agent do the replication. So it's much more easier. Then you also the third problem they mentioned is privacy and IRBs. Now again, like you can have better control over like anonymization or things like that, or the other way as well, like to de-anonymize. So one of the things we recently did is that we showed that even anonymized conversations, you can detect a lot of like gender and age range and things like that with these ChatGPT conversations. The final thing is in terms of the one of the obstacles they mentioned is the computationally literate social scientists. I think this is where like the biggest impact of these AI agents will come in is the computational part of computational social science is commoditizing, and the social half weighs the most. Like, so this is a big positive. So the execution is now very cheap, and so that is a big positive. So a lot of the things that I mentioned were just previously big tasks in CSS, like things like scraping a data set, doing the analysis, communicating our research, all of these, and now they've become commodities, like they've become very easy to do. So things like all these data collection, classification, building dashboards, literature review, pipeline development, engineering kind of tasks, they're all cheap now. What is scarce is actually spending time on like finding the right questions to work on, like working on the identification strategies, collecting the right type of data, and taste is a very good example. So to answer this question, like if I'm starting a PhD in computational social science, like does it make sense if agents are able to do a lot of the tasks that a PhD student can do? I think the answer is yes. This is a really good time and a very exciting time to do great work in CSS because firstly, yeah, this sort of computation bottleneck was a big thing, and now agents solve that to a large extent. Especially if you are like uh, hardworking and talented and know how to use AI effectively. Like I think it's a really good time to do a PhD in CSS because the world needs a lot of like good social science more so now, especially as AI accelerates, like understanding the social consequences, like impacts of AI, how are people using AI, what are applications of AI, things like that are becoming more and more relevant and more important, which we are like, the CSS folks are really well placed to answer. Even things which are not previously possible, things like multimodal content processing. Like, so I've not shown you this, but we are doing a lot of like image processing, video processing, things like that that are now possible at scale, which were not previously possible because of AI advances in general, and AI agents make that analysis easy. Uh, and so our task now is just to look at, like, okay, and decide where do we point this firepower. So we have these hugely powerful tools, and like what we need is like where do we point these tools. One thing to be very cautious about, in general about the field is that, yeah, this makes a lot of the specific type of CSS work very easy. So there'll be a flood of papers, and we're already seeing that. It's probably going to be much, much more so in the near future. So things like AI written papers about AI classified data, and there's no human supervision. Everything can be done with AI, like I showed you. Uh, and so it's not necessarily always bad, but it will also be bad social science. Like, so one of the takeaways from some of like this case study 5, which is where I have this very complex orchestration, like it is running these open source models and all of that stuff, is, yeah, I mean, those were questions which would not have probably been answered, which are now being answered. But if I just think of those as, yeah, I have 5 more papers, that's not the right way to do this. Like, you need to think about what is good science and what is bad science, and things like these, like which are like the ability to generate these papers more quickly, do more different types of analysis, explore different ideas, will seem novel at first. But if once everyone figures it out, like, and these tools are commoditized, so everyone will figure these out. It becomes slop, and like the value of these doing things like that everyone else can do will just decrease. And that's what happened with writing, right? Like, so when ChatGPT came out, just the ability that a model can write like really good English grammatical prose is amazing. But now if you see AI written text, you're like, okay, this is flop, like I don't want this, right? So here, like, evaluation becomes a bottleneck, and I think this is where, like, it's very important to uh, put, like, showcase the effort, right? Where doing slow science, doing thoughtful science, things like that will become a premium. So if you're publishing what 30 papers in a single conference, yeah, that is now possible. But like, in the end, like everyone, the value of that will not be the volume, but the quality. And so credibility becomes very important. If people realize that you're just automating your work and not putting the human element in it, then I think the credibility matters a lot. And I've had personal experiences at this where, some of my own low quality AI assisted work had impacted my own credibility. Then yeah, I mean, always, like, when these days I'm trying to do this sort of thinking of, like, can an AI agent do this work? Like, if I decide on a problem, obviously, if an AI agent can do it, there's no point in me trying to do it, like resisting the AI and doing it myself. For instance, how do I effectively use an AI agent to do this? And there are many, many things here, like things like, especially in our field, like things like getting new data, or like working with a specific community, or doing it in a very ethical manner, or getting actually policy impact, things like that, which are new kinds of problems that we may not always be thinking about, will have a lot more value now. Uh, and yeah, things like these kinds of auxiliary things which we may not be doing will have value. And so one of the things that changes a lot is at least in my I when I was showing you a lot of these use cases, this is something that I keep getting reminded of. Is in my PhD there were days where I would just spend like 2 days just because there was some bug in like some piece of code, and I didn't know what was the bug and like how to fix it. So I would spend like days just sitting on like one piece of code and one error. Like now, as I showed you, like in 2 days, I can do what I was able to do in maybe, I don't know, 5 months of my PhD time, right? Like, and all of you have access to the same tools now. So think more of like as a manager, where you are able to specify these tasks precisely, review the work, allocate your attention, and all of this stuff. Yeah, so especially for me, like I spend most of my time now just verifying and reviewing work that AI has done, and then think of like what else I can do. So yeah, it's more like you're running a startup now, which is what an academic like a professor job would be. But now a lot of your a PhD student's job is also now like that, like with these AI agents as workers. And I really, it's a very good thing like that you have a lot of this type of help, and you can scale up a lot of things. So just the last slide is so make sure you adopt aggressively. Like I mean, this is the advice I give. Is there will be, in a few years, a gap between the people who have adopted and who have not adopted effectively. uh, think of like where there is a execution is not the bottleneck. Things like getting new types of data, for instance. Taste is very important. Like so, a lot of the time that I used to spend in like working on the analysis, now I spend time on reading. Right, like so that is something that especially as PhD students, I think you should spend a lot of time on. So figuring out like what to work on exactly will come when you have time to read a lot of different kinds of things. So now with this new found time, like you really should allocate that to work on building this sort of taste. And yeah, making sure that your work is auditable, I think is very important. So yeah, I mean, I again, I keep thinking of this every day, or like a lot of the time. So why do we do this? Like, why are we doing a PhD, or like, why are we in an academic job? All of these kind of things. Uh, so it's if you are here to take all of these shortcuts and like produce bad quality science, or game the system and things like that, probably that's not the right way to think of impact and like why you're doing this. So yeah, thanks a lot.